Hi, this is Billie Beene here with another segment of Truth by Billie Beene, episode 323. Today's date, May 12, 2022. Some of my sources are God in the Bible, Patriot subscribers, Cliff High, Gene Decode, A Chrstoferou, Alexander Mercouris, James Bartley, Crossroads-Joshua Phillippe, Dr Michael Salla, Goode, Smoothie times 12, that's the Russian retired military analyst, Andrei Martyryov, and others. So let's get started. And I'd like to say thanks, like, subscribe, and share. I have a subscribe button in the lower right corner of my screen. I'd like to say welcome to all 50 states, including Alaska, Hawaii, the First Nations, Cherokee, Navajo, Hopi, Chickasaw, Mohawk, Apache, First Nation, Pitt River, California, Mohicans, Yakama Nation in Washington State, Potawatomi in the Midwest in Oklahoma, Ojibwe Nation in northern Minnesota, a proud people who want peace and justice, Choctaw, Abenaki tribe, Cheyenne, Massanutten, Pequot, Blackfoot in Montana, Spokane and Coville, Powhatan, and the nations of Canada, England, France, Ireland, Philippines, South Africa, Netherlands, also called Holland, Indonesia, Scotland, Germany, Switzerland, New Zealand, Maldives, Nepal, Norway, Australia, Chile, Thailand, Belgium, Mexico, Brazil, Russia, Panama, Guam, U.S. territory, Jamaica, an Icelander living in Spain, and other people in Spain, Wales in the UK, Sweden, Italy, Puerto Rico, a U.S. territory, Romania, Bermuda, Bahamas, British territories, Morocco, Argentina, Northern Marianas Island, Denmark, Bolivia, Uganda, Iceland, Serbia, Bulgaria, Mauritius, and the newest, Ukraine, the Czech Republic, Poland, Costa Rica, Malta, China, and Hungary. So let's get started. Okay, I have some information from Patriot subscribers. Okay, one says, my dad and I, and this came out, I received this like yesterday, took a trip from Ohio to North Carolina. We see more tractor trailers on the road than we see cars, meaning there's plenty of shipments going forth. I have a Patriot subscriber who says peat moss will absorb gamma rays. You know, if we have a nuclear or an event from the sun can also put out similar rays to radioactive. Okay, I have a Patriot subscriber. This is the United States, and this is true of most American citizens who are awake and aware. We, the people, need to take back control of our country. We have lost faith in our military and our government because we have shadow parts of our government military, as all nations do. And President Trump, yeah, we need to get that military moving and put President Trump back in place. I have a Patriot subscriber from Canada who says, yeah, we knew the Ukraine soldiers, military, were training in Canada. And also, I recall about the CCP. Lots of us reported seeing CCP soldiers in Stanley Park in Vancouver. And you've heard thousands have been taken out from the underground tunnels. Yes, thank God. That's talking about the CCP. All right. I have a Patriot subscriber. A CCP, we're training in Canada to experience extreme weather. A Patriot subscriber. Yeah. Talking about the U.S. military plane that was split in half by the CCP during that December 11, of 2020 incident on the Canada-U.S. Border when the U.S. took out, it was 50 to 75,000 CCP who were in the underground tunnels trying to invade the U.S. There was a plane shot down, and this Patriot subscriber is asking, was it on the peninsula in Michigan? And I recall we had two reports. One was in Michigan and one was in Maine. As a possibility, maybe there were two planes, but yes. Okay, I have a Patriot subscriber who says, and it's a Patriot subscriber. This one's from Israel. I need to add that to my list of nations too, Israel. And it's saying that the group of individuals inside Ukraine, and some are in Poland, and some had been in Kazakhstan, the group that Jesus said, you say you are Jews, but you are not. You are of your father, serpents and vipers. And so we know about the bloodlines. Okay. And so from Israel comes this. We learned recently that these so-called Jews were in high places in our government. But we, the people of Israel, are awake. And we understand from other sources that Israel is not supporting what's going on in Ukraine. So that correlates with this Patriot subscriber from Israel. Okay. I have a Patriot subscriber who's praying for President Trump, who substantiates and says, we had heard about the assassination try in March. So that correlates with the information that came out from multiple sources, and the March date came from Jim Willey, PhD economist from Costa Rica, recently. I have a Patriot subscriber from the Donbass area in Ukraine. Your reports are true of what's going on in Ukraine, and truth will set us free. That's right. Okay. So I have a report from, Jim Willey, and this is accurate. I'll put this down for you. So this goes along with Sun Tzu, Art of War. Identify who are your enemies and who are your allies. Okay. So Jim Willey is bringing this forth, that it's U.S. plus Russia, the White Hats, versus the Rothschilds. And this is also goes in the Azov. We know this is a civilian group in Ukraine who actively practice the philosophy of World War II Germany. And they have mercenaries. And this is what Jim Willey is bringing out. Okay, this is the two groups. This is the White Hats, but we also have the Alliance in here, and we also have God, who is actively involved in this. Jim Willey is saying this: these groups will not hesitate to use nukes. So, we need to be in prayer, because like I said, God is actively involved in what's going on. So we've got this going on. Now, I have several reports about what's going on in Ukraine coming from multiple individuals. So this has to do with the Russia and their oil and gas and food plus. And Europe, the psychopath leaders of Europe wanting to cut off these supplies to the peoples of their nations. And like Germany Germany would take down the economy by 40%. And already in Germany, many leaders of major industries are telling the prime minister, look, do you want to continue in your job? Then stop it with these sanctions. You have no right to destroy economy. So that's going on. And in Hungary, yeah, there's already several countries. There's Serbia, there's Hungary, that are not going along with the European sanctions. And also, many nations are outraged by the European sanction against the leader of the Orthodox Christian Church in Russia. So yeah, you're going to sanction the leaders of religions? Who came up with that? And for goodness sakes, why would you think that your populations would accept that? Okay, this is Smoothie, this times 12. And this is actually a retired Russian military analyst, Andrei Martyakov. Okay, and he's saying that Russia has captured quite a few. Okay, he's giving information on that incident that happened in, here we have Odessa, we have Snake Island, and this is Crimea. And I have other sources besides Andre, okay, talking about this. So yeah, the Zelensky, directed by the shadow U.S. government, the shadow U.S. military, the shadow NATO, overrode the common sense military doctrine trained generals of Ukraine. Override them. We, the political operatives, will make the military decisions. And that's how the Snake Island incident came in, where this previous weekend, Ukraine sent in, and I think they lost maybe 8 helicopters, and then they lost 3 amphibious boats, and then they had like 60 paratroopers killed. They had 1 colonel of their navy killed. And now we have multiple reports that Ukraine soldiers' bodies are washing up on the island. So far it's 24. And the Russians are, as they're doing in other parts of Ukraine, because the Ukraine government has nothing to put forward to deal with their dead soldiers. So Russia, as they advance in the front line, are also burying the Ukraine soldiers and doing the same on Snake Island. And of course trying to get IDs if that's possible. Okay, so what Andre is bringing out is there had been a report that Ukraine had captured a nuclear powered Russian sub in the Black Sea. And Andre is saying that's impossible because there are some kind of rules about what you can put in the Black Sea, and you cannot put subs that are nuclear powered. They have to be diesel powered. So right away you see that this report you may be hearing is not accurate. And he's saying that Zelensky was swayed and told what to do by American and British consultants, shadow people, and it was a huge loss for Ukraine, for their soldiers. Now, after seeing how this so-called war is being prosecuted, the Ukraine people are rising up to protest. Yeah, you're swooping down and kidnapping males as young as 14, and also taking men 40 to 60s and putting them on the front line as fodder for the war machine, with no military objective to be secured other than the shadow US and the shadow British and the shadow NATO want Ukraine's male population decimated, and to continue this war effort inside Ukraine so it can be expanded by NATO into other nations, so NATO can get their world war going. And it's my belief that Snake Island fiasco had the purpose had been to secure Snake Island and then bring in nuclear and chemical weapons, spread them in Ukraine, say Russia did it. It spreads to other nations, and then NATO can get what they want, a world war. Okay. So now we have this going on in different parts of Ukraine. This is from Alexander Mercouris. He's out of London. We have Severodonetsk. We have Mariupol. We have Papananya. These are some major areas that have been captured. All right. So, what's going on with these cities? Let me draw you a map. This is Luhansk, Donetsk, Odessa, Crimea. This is Lviv, the area that Poland wants to take in. We understand there's a portion down here that Hungary desires, or it could be Romania. But there's another area to be taken out by another nation. We have a front line. Oh yeah, Moldova, Transnistria. This area is also going to Russia eventually. All right. So now, on this front line, we have Sloviansk, we have Kramatorsk, we have Izium, and what the Russians have captured recently is Severodonetsk and other locations. Now, this is saying that Ukraine is losing in this area, and that the Russians have taken also in this area a location called Papananya that has high elevation. So we can see that would be a good ground for a military to control. Okay. And there's, according to Scott Ritter, the regular Ukraine soldiers are fighting very hard and putting up a strong resistance along this front line. Now, in Mariupol, we had about 1,000 civilians rescued over the weekend. Now we understand there's still maybe several hundreds of civilians still there, still being held by Azov and NATO and military consultants from 8 to 10 nations and other people, still being held underground as human shields. So, And we understood over this past weekend that an individual came up from the catacombs with the white flag saying, we want to talk. They did talk to the Russian military inside the warehouse. Then they went back down into the catacombs. Now we're understanding that consistent messages from the actor Zelensky, who takes his military orders outside of Ukraine. Yes, stand and fight, even though you're in an undefendable area. Stand and fight. And the Ukraine people are rising up and saying, stop this. Okay. And the people, the Azov and the NATO and other people inside this steel mill that came up with their white flag are criticizing the Ukraine government. They feel betrayed, they're angry, and they're left with face death, our surrender, and the puppet government is saying, die for Ukraine, with no logical and no benefit to anyone. It's just we need to prolong this war so NATO can get involved, so NATO can get their world war going. So it doesn't, there's no value for the Ukraine people. And I think the Ukraine people have known about this since 2014. Okay. But they're rising up. And they're saying that the families are protesting about conscripting their males, 14, and then their older males, 40 to 60s. So, now, also, following that incident at Snake Island, Russia shelled landing strips inside Odessa, right here. So Snake Island was right about here, Snake Island. So no more bringing in troops to this area. And Russia, they understood the orders from President Zelensky were from the U.S. and British advisors for the Snake Island incident. And we have this. It appears that brave soldiers for Ukraine are sent into battle, and that was the brave, well-trained Special Forces Ukraine soldiers who were sacrificed in that ill-conceived Snake Island incident. And the people of Ukraine understand that their well-trained Special Forces brave soldiers are sent into battle and are dying for PR reasons. Okay. It's nothing to do with defending the people of Ukraine. And I think the people of Ukraine are waking up to see that their current individuals in charge of their government are not representing the people. All right. So now we have the EU sanctions, are destroying the EU economy. They're not impacting Russia, who is simply not selling their oil and gas and food and whatever to Europe. They're turning and selling it to China. Okay, Alexander Chrstoferou, a Greek journalist, put out this map. All right. So he's saying that West Ukraine would be one part. There would be a small part right here. The rest is going to Russia. And we're hearing reports now that some locations in this area, they're putting up the Russian flag. Russia is paying welfare and pensions in rubles. And the local fiat currency is going to be good for 4 more months and then completely replaced by the ruble. So that's going on. And then we have Crimea here. We have a part here. This will be Transnistria, Moldova. So the map that Dr. William Mount put out about the 1st of March continues to be accurate with what Ukraine's going to look like at the end of this war and which parts are going to Russia. So this is also coming out now from Alex Chrstoferou. All right, Crossroads-Joshua Phillippe is saying that, and there's quite a few people, the movie that came out recently that was an expose on the November 2020 incident is impacting. And this is coming out on Crossroads-Joshua Phillippe. Pull the ripcord and release all the related data. So yeah, that's coming on. Now we have information from James Bartley. I think his background is like military. All right. So now he's saying that the Soviet, in the past, had a plan to infiltrate different departments of agriculture in various nations in an effort to control food supply. And we've seen recently the fires in the food processing plus areas that process food with a threat to take down crops. Now, James is putting this forward that, in the past that was part of the military spy program, the CIA spy program on a global basis. So rather than try to tie the fires of the food processing plants and other food-related plants inside the United States recently, we need to remember that, according to Real Raw News, the Secretary of Agriculture was recently arrested, who worked for the shadow U.S. government currently in place. All right. Now, James is bringing this out, which correlates to what God gave me recently about heads up on propaganda. That, yes, there had been a lot of communist propaganda related to Joseph McCarthy. That was in the 50s, I believe. And he related it to a character in the TV series All in the Family, Michael, who would spout communist rhetoric. That's true. So yeah, there's propaganda. So I think this was an effort to put forward something to plant in the mind of hearers, Soviet and propaganda and communist. Okay. We the people, having been warned by God, are a little bit up on what it is that's coming out. Okay. So now we have this. Yes, the people in Ukraine are protesting about the draftees. And on the internet, the Ukraine people are protesting. And they're protesting the Ukraine citizens being conscripted and used as fodder on the front line. And we have this, that the shadow U.S. government, led by the actor JB for currently a short period of time, $40 billion to Ukraine, and then Lend-Lease. This is when Lend-Lease. A nation is in war. Another nation gives them weapons, but it's Lend-Lease. You'll pay us back for those. All right. Now we have Duran and Jacob Davidson, Army military analyst. Okay. And he's the one who brought forth the information about the towns replacing their currency with rubles and welfare and pensions being paid in rubles. Okay. Now, we're hearing that in that frontline area near Sloviansk and going into Kramatorsk for the Ukraine number of soldiers, we're hearing a figure, 8,000. And in Donbass, the Ukraine soldiers near Luhansk are almost encircled, and they're trying to get a town, Limon, and then proceed to Sloviansk. And the rumor is that the Ukraine troops near Donetsk could not defend, but the Ukraine soldiers are dug in. They're not retreating because they're receiving orders from the puppet government there in Kiev. Don't retreat. And now we have the West. This is from Alex Mercouris. The West mainstream media are all lies, and the Ukraine people are waking up and understanding what is being broadcast is not truthful. Now in Donbass, let's draw another map. We have Luhansk, Donbass, Mariupol, Crimea, Odessa, Snake Island. All right. Kiev. This is Kharkov. All right. Okay, the Russian losses are going down. Russia is not having as many losses as they initially had in the first part of the war when they were trying to secure. They made a straight line for Kiev on a fast basis. Now they're going slow. Their losses are going down. But the Ukraine soldiers are dying hundreds by the day. And Scott Ritter estimated 400 to 1,000 per day. Now, I keep asking, where are all these Ukraine soldiers on the front line? Because at the beginning we heard in March 100 to 120,000. Now we're hearing figures like 8,000 here or so. And we hear now that Zelensky wants to redeploy men in their 40s and 60s. They want to go out and conscript now every single male body they can find. And the Ukraine people are saying, stop this. All right. So at Donbass, there's been some shortage of fuel and diesel, but this is for the Ukraine. And also in Kiev and Lviv, civilians are having to wait hours in line to get gas. And for Ukraine, the GDP is down 30 to 50%. And the number of people who have left Ukraine is 5 million, more than 10% of the population. Now, these nations have no interest in getting involved in the war effort. Romania, Poland, Moldavia, Georgia, no interest. They don't want to be dragged into this fighting. So I guess the NATO push is not working very well. Okay, in this area, we have some small villages that the Azov Kraken unit is advancing on and retaking, but these small towns are empty. There's no people there. So, and they are still using civilians when they can find them as human shields. Now, the reserves from the Luhansk People's Republic and the Donetsk People's Republic are now part, and the National Guard are now part of a group called Allied Forces, Russia plus Allied Forces. And we have in Mariupol, in the steel mill, there's still about 100 civilians being held. And in Haifa, a town called Haifa, the Azov told Russia they would exchange civilians for food and medicine. Okay. Yeah, they're holding, so the Azov NATO group are holding civilians and saying, yeah, we'll trade them for food because we're being cut off. Kharkov, the Ukraine brigade, now they're saying Ukraine in this area is down to 1,000. And they're retaking empty towns. Okay. Probably trying to find some food. At Snake Island, the Russian Ministry of Defense says Zelensky ordered the military. They overrode the Ukraine generals who said, no, don't do this. Okay. The front line has been broken in this area. Russian tanks are moving in. They're going to open from Donbass down to Crimea a corridor. They have now circled Kiev and Sumy in this area, are circled by the Russian and Allied forces. And the lockdown is coming. They're locking down the Ukraine troops in these two areas. All right, Moon of Alabama is saying that Russia in this area is doing heavy shelling. They're making a slow advance. Yeah, Russia is practicing their very sound military doctrine of go slow and have a drop in the number of your soldiers being killed, but take that land slowly with tanks and shelling, and that's what they're doing. The Luhansk People's Republic and the Donetsk People's Republic, their militias are actively fighting on the front line with Russia. And this is another report. Yeah. The front line is broken. Russian tanks are moving in. Yeah. So we got that going. So in summary, we can see that we're finding out there is a shadow. Well, Zelensky, according to Gene Decode, is not even human. And he is not put in by the Ukraine people, but rather by the shadow U.S. government, the shadow State Department, the shadow CIA. And he's taking his orders outside of Ukraine and not from the Ukraine generals, who we would assume are well trained. They were trained by NATO and have been for years. So, yeah. And the people of Ukraine are now waking up and saying, and how long is it going to take for the people of Ukraine then to go into full revolt? So we'll see. We need to be in prayer for the people of Ukraine. All right. Corey Goode. This is sci-fi. So Corey Goode is saying that beneath the Nazca lines in Peru are 534 spaceships. And of course, our government and our military have known about them for decades. And have they been telling we the people? No, but now they're coming out. Oh yeah, you know why they're coming out with this disclosure? Because they can't keep it hidden any longer. There are things happening on the earth. Oh yeah, we were going to tell y'all. Yeah. All right. Now, according to Corey Goode, is saying a lot of his information came from Pete Peterson. Now, Pete Peterson was often interviewed by Carrie Cassidy. So on Project Camelot, I'm sure are a lot of interviews that she did with Pete. He's been passed away, but now he was a designated military person put forth to be a whistleblower. All right, so according to Corey Goode, then, these 534 ships under the Nazca lines in Peru were operated by beings that had 3 fingers. And we often see that as a stereotype, a 3-fingered ET. And these 3-fingered ETs were more advanced than the current ETs on Earth. So, we have the Nazca, we have the 534 ships, we have the 3-fingered ETs. And according to the alliance forces made up of, I think it's up to 38 militaries and governments now. And they also work with the off-world species that are coming in. Okay. So according to all that group, these 3-fingered ETs had technology that's more advanced than the current ETs on Earth are using. So this was in the past. And yeah, here's another technology that's coming out. According to Corey Goode, P and other whistleblowers have been given an okay to put out any and all data. Now we have coming forth travel by thought. Now for me, Adam and Eve, and certainly Jesus, who had 64-strand human DNA, could also do this, travel by thought. All right. Now, this is new information that Pete Peterson gave to Corey Goode. Out in space, we have had and currently do have 65 outposts with about 3,500 troops in each one. And they make up a network where there are portals and also jump gates where they can move across. So we would, out in space, here's Earth. We've got 65 or so spread across space. Military outpost, each one now has 3,500 troops, They have access to portals and jump gates. And oh yeah, we were going to tell y'all. All right. So now, Mexico sold the 534 ships under the Nazca Alliance to the U.S. military. And they can obviously operate these ships, although there's a dynamic to them. So these 534 ships, the combined alliance militaries can operate, but they can only work with a different numbers of human beings on board. And that is 7 or 27. It won't work if you have 5 or 11 or 17 or 35. Only these two numbers correlate to these ships, and the ships will operate. So, and he's bringing this new information out. Earth-like planets in our galaxy. So here we go. We have, here's Earth, and here's our galaxy. Bada-bye. Planets that are like Earth and would sustain life, 40 billion. That's why people are saying, no, there isn't other life out there. God doesn't operate that way. There's plenty of life. Yes. So disclosure is coming out. So now we're moving to Heads Up, this new section got added a few weeks ago. So Dr. Michael Salla is bringing this out. And just a few days ago, that was on about May 6th, we had in the International Space Station, here's Earth, a fleet of ET vehicles was seen, and it was down. See, here's our satellites up here. It was down in this area. And it made something like an arrow shape. And it was 30 ET craft that were seen. And Dr. Michael Salla contacted Elena Danaan, and then some information came forward from Thor Han, who's a representative for the Galactic Federation of Worlds, who said there's the Intergalactic Confederation and the Galactic Federation of Worlds. The way I understand the difference between these two groups, this is inside our galaxy and this is outside our galaxy in terms of species. All right. So, yes, this is part of the disclosure program agreed upon between the Earth Alliance and God, who is in charge of all of this, and these two groups. And they brought out the 30 ET ships, and they were disc-shaped ships. You know what humans would typically say a spaceship. And yeah, this is being brought out now. Another thing they're going to be bringing out soon is present to the people of the Earth the TR-3B. We know that's the triangular craft. That's an anti-gravity craft. And I think a lot of people know about that. Let me get mine. Already. I think that's pretty common knowledge, but it's going to be formally brought out by the Alliance. Well, surely before that happens, they're going to have to get rid of the mainstream media or own those stations for sure. Okay, also heads up. Suspicious observers. Now, this morning God said, I said, what am I doing for heads up? And he said, wait until you get the information from suspicious observers and then put that out. Okay. So he's talking about a pole shift. Eventually, we know that the electromagnetic shield of the Earth is down, and he's making this statement, there's no Nibiru. Now, June de Code, in this, 6 months or so, talked extensively about a group, I think that was called Nemesis, and one of their moons is called Nibiru. I think that was on Galactic Talk, one of the locations. And he demonstrated how it comes in on almost a 30,000 year cycle. Comes around the sun and comes down. It's hard to see. And it's called Nibiru or Planet X. But it had come in, I think, 2012 maybe, 2014, around the sun and down around, and then had left our solar system in 2017. Now, I appreciate Ben Davidson saying there's no Nibiru, but according to Israeli News Live, Stephen Benoon, his information from the Pentagon, there is something euphemistically called Planet X, which was to come into our solar system September of 2022, and by December of 2022 would affect planets in our solar system. So there's another object out there. Okay. Now, Ben Davidson with Suspicious Observers is saying, yes, there's a galactic sheet that's affecting Earth. It looks something like this. It's called Galactic Sheet. And it's mobilized and moving. It's energy. And it's affecting Earth. And our electromagnetic shield is going down. And it's almost, it's very weak. All right. And he brought this out that the planets Pluto and Neptune, their temperatures are going down. And Ben Davidson is saying coming Ice Age, which correlates to Cliff High's Webbot data, Ice Age about 2030. So yeah, we see these things going on. Now let's move ahead to Judy Byington. And we can say, Judy, Judy, Judy. Okay, she's saying JB out by May 16 of 2022. Now, let's examine this. We recently learned about that assassination attempt on President Trump, where he was revived with ET technology, regened, I believe. And we had a date for that to happen either March 1 to March 15, and then I just today or yesterday I had received that some more information from a Patriot subscriber said yes, we knew about the assassination attempt that happened in March. Okay, so now we have this movie out about the November 2020 incident, and it's designed to wake up the normies. And now we have this information coming out from Goode and other sources. God and the Alliance are given a full disclosure of the ET information plus. Okay, so it's time. And Geopolitical had given the probability for President Trump returning in May as 50% and up. So, yeah, we say bring it, Father. Okay. So we have this going on. We have George Bush Biolabs. This would be George Bush plus. He was really a puppet also. Yeah. And they were making pathogens designed to be ethnically useful. One group was the Slavs, like the white Christians in Ukraine and Russia, and also that would apply to many Slavs in this nation. I believe it's probably with the Caucasian populations in Canada and the U.S., maybe as high as 50% of us carry Slavic genes. It's possible. But they had done it for Slavs and Asian populations, and we had one source who said out of these biolabs, they could even pick out an individual and whip up a little pathogen directly based on your genetics to take you out. Okay. We also have this from Judy, that U.S. Special Forces have gone into Switzerland to work with and train the Switzerland Special Forces so they can take out another group that's underneath Lake Geneva of the deep state. Now, I have a Facebook friend who's saying great dates in May. It'll be 13, 17, 22 to 28, and the 31st. And we say bring it, Father. We're ready. And we're definitely ready for President Trump to return. And it's time before we, the people, are forced to come into more control of what's going on. Okay, short prayer. Here's a cleansing prayer modeled by Jean de Code. We remove permission to be in us, on us, around us, on earth, off-world, any dimension, any person, place, or thing not of God, any assemblage of fallen angels, AI, nanobot, and other forms of tech, any non-terrestrial species, spirit, thought form, operating system, genetic overlay, past, present, and future. And we say, get away from us in the name of Jesus. Now, this is a new prayer series, the Rest series. So this is the first of 4. And the name of this is God's Rest. It's based on the King James Version. Hebrew 3. Harden not your hearts today, so you may enter into my rest. Matthew 11. Come unto me, all that labor, I will give you rest. Exodus 33. My presence will go before you. I will give you rest. Matthew 11. Learn of me, Jesus, whom many call Yeshua, and you shall find rest for your souls. Exodus 34. Work for 6 days, and in the 7th rest. Even in earing time and in harvest, you shall rest, and let your land rest the 7th year. And we say, Lord, let us always be aware of work, sleep, and rest cycles. Guide us in living our lives in a balanced way, which also honors you, our God, and our Creator. And we say thank you, Father, Son, Jesus, whom many call Yeshua, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. And I say to my family and friends, remain steady out there, continue to pray. God is in charge, and He is on the move. I love you, and I'll see you soon.